Well, happy Monday to everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's that time again of the week. Get the week rolling here and get rolling another virtual happy hour for your Monday. Let's start the open in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Yeah, good to have everybody. Welcome to another exciting edition. I got a window between now and a conference call, so I'm going to try to squeeze this in. I sort of roll the open a couple minutes till, so I guess we're actually on time today, aren't we? I'm going to double check and check our audio here if we are getting some audio, which is what I will do right now. And we are. Good deal. Good to see you, Nolan, as well out there. Mark Hendrick, Nate Miller, others. Glad you guys are along. Got to kind of adjust the camera here. I'm having a little issue. I had a really kind of cool last half hour or so leading up the show, and I almost went into showtime. It's December 7th. Yeah, it's December 7th. I don't know if that rings true to a lot of folks. We're going to talk about that in a moment. A little bit more in detail, but yeah, December 7th. I'm assuming that I'm guessing, and I didn't ask this today. I was teaching today, but I didn't ask because I was in a situation where I really didn't have wasn't in a class where I was kind of monitoring the Zoom call. So the teacher was Zooming, and I was kind of making sure everything was going good and all that. So I didn't really have to do any actual, too much engaging today, but I always like to find out if anybody knows things like June 6th. I always ask my interns every baseball season if they know what June 6th is. And it's always fun if I'm subbing on the 7th of December, if they know what that is. And I would say for the most part, folks sort of know, but I think it's a lot like it's kind of just history to a lot of folks too. So let me bring this down real quick. And I believe she's standing by. Mom will join us off the top. Let's bring her on right now. All righty, let's bring her on there. Mom, how you doing? It's Monday, and everything going good for you up there in the wild Indiana?
Oh, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, I guess.
You guys got like snow and stuff, or?
Well, there was predicted to be snow, but it's probably more toward the lake. I don't know if they had any or not. I was out today. It was cold. It was in the 30s, but I was out in the afternoon. I had to ship a bunch of packages, take a garment to the cleaners, and pick up my groceries to go. So I was on a mini adventure. So there you go.
Good deal.
I didn't get. Well, I did. Oh, golly! I'm glad I don't have to go to the post office anymore. What a scene that was!
Yeah, I guarantee it was.
They had their masks on, and they had a lot of people. They had a lot of people behind the counter waiting on people. I thought I had chosen a time there wouldn't be a bunch of people there. Well, that wasn't the case. But anyway, they usually have maybe just 2 people behind the counter, but they had 5 today. So I guess they're trying to move them in and out so that they don't hang around too long. So
that may be the case. I don't know. I may be. I got to tell you, and I was going to mention this to everybody else. We were at North Park Mall on Saturday just for about, maybe a half hour the most. We went in there. We actually went to an espresso store to get some of the new coffee pods for my coffee machine. And I wanted to go in because I thought I'd be able to try a couple of new ones. Turns out I wasn't able to because they have a little coffee shop in there. You can try the samples, but in the pandemic, you're not doing much trying. They're selling, but they're not doing a lot of samples. So anyway, long and the short of it was, I don't think it was a pandemic. The only reason I know there was a pandemic going on is because the folks that were walking along in their mask, and most had their mask, or a good, I would say one out of five had their mask drooping, like the nose was exposed or kind of hanging down. But the only reason you knew we were in a strange time was the fact that there were people in masks. But I thought the mall traffic was pretty decent for a Sunday in December or Saturday in December 5th. Holidays, shopping, and all that. I thought it was pretty good traffic, foot traffic. And my wife made this point to me earlier. We were driving out of there. We drove by that mall countless times during lockdown back, April, May, and all that. And it was a ghost town. You drive by there, and there was no one. Of course, nothing. There was stretches into the fall. There was limited cars there, but there were actually people there. And so I think it kind of depends on where you're at, I guess. I mean, some folks are doing their thing, some folks aren't. So,
well, I just noticed where Florida has joined Texas, California, New York, and another state, and it doesn't have to be Indiana. Surprise, in the top number of deaths, and in the recent. I don't know what I can't quote exactly,
right?
But I think in a day. So they won't be going out if that continues to happen. So.
Well, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, granted, there's a lot of people's business that are hurting, and it was. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was the day before Christmas and everybody was cramming the mall, but there was more people than I expected, and we all actually went in one door to our right, went to one. We had one place we were going. We didn't make other stops, but I was just again sort of taken back a bit that there were. I mean, I guess the media's got it, and this is going to get on my tangent in a few minutes because I got some very hot under the collar opinions, as you may have seen on Facebook today. But because the media's job now is to bash those they don't agree with, that I was in the impression you're going to go into that mall and all you'd see was skeletal remains, and it'd be just desolate with the old cartoon with the crow on top of the cattle skull, that kind of look.
Yeah, exactly.
The buzzards flying around, but there are people in the mall. Now, granted, most were in masks. Some of them had them drooping. That's another thing I'll get to on Wednesday. But it was good to see some commerce going on. Yeah. It was good to see. Granted, the movie theaters. We were talking about this too. My wife and I were talking about this. I wonder if the movie business maybe changed forever. I mean, I just saw one of the studios just released a bunch of titles into HBO, and the movie theaters may never recover. I mean, there's Paul and I were talking on Talking Baseball Australia that my big concern about the Australian Baseball League and the leagues in the States, the minors, the independent leagues, is their financial viability with all this. And I think it's all the business. So I guess for a few moments in the mall, and we weren't freaked out. We got our masks on, we wash our hands, all that. And we were socially distanced. You had to line up and get in the store and all that nonsense. But it was good to see some commerce going on, that people were, granted, not like it should be, but it was good to see that.
Yeah, well, that's the scary part. If you have Amazon stock, you're in good shape.
Yeah, right.
If you're a small business owner or a restaurant, a small, local restaurant, you're getting there. It's a serious thing. I don't know how they're surviving. I have 3 friends or 4 friends actually that have restaurants here in Elkhart. They're locally owned, and I try to go. I have one of them I don't go to because it's north of the toll road, but the others I try to go to. But I'm to the point of carry out, again, because it's we've had the hospitals are full here. Our county is really hit because the RV industry has not shut down, because they're going to have the best year in history, and because people are going crazy, they want to get out, so they're buying RVs and boats, to get out on the water. I guess you can escape from COVID if you're out on the water. I don't know, but anyway, who knows?
Well, no, my idea of camping
out is going to a Holiday Inn that doesn't have a TV. So there you go.
Yeah, that's roughing it, Mom.
Yeah,
That's well, I mean, again,
really
and like I said, I mean, it's kind of cool to. I mean, I'm glad there are people doing something. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, I'm not encouraging. People need to do what's best for them, but I'm glad that people were sort of, out and about, and try again. It's. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the going to the mall, that sample. I don't know what the mall was like today, but that was a Saturday, and it's usually pretty busy on a Saturday anyway. So it was about a normal Saturday, but I was expecting, because I've been told by the television that it's not good out there. But again, and we went to eat on Saturday night there at Fernando's, and luckily Fernando's has got a heated patio, and we were out in the patio, and there was a pretty steady. Even though the restaurants have gone backwards in capacity, there was a pretty steady, flow there. I mean, it wasn't, and we ate out on Friday night at a little pub. We went to a brewery over in Grapevine, and that place had their windows open, and it was cold. We were bundled up to have a little barbecue and some craft beer with Kaylin. But I don't know if it'd have been much colder. I don't know how much more we could have been outside. We would have had to stay home. Yeah. So yeah. we're on those hit or miss deals. So
no, that's the problem up here. In the evening, it starts getting in the temperatures in the 30s. Well, some places have got the little igloos, they're calling them, but you can't seat but about 3 or 4 people in those little igloos. There's a brewery in downtown Goshen that has those little igloos outside, and they're see-through and they have heaters in them. But I mean, my goodness, you're still limited. They happen to have a really small dining room, and so go figure. And then there's some places they're advertising, like up in the Michigan and the wine country, that they have outdoor seating with heating. Well, I can't imagine in 30-something degrees that I'm going to get warm enough sitting outside with a heater. I'm not really sure about that.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so that's the sad part, is that's the small bit, and that also includes your mom and pop stores, like the dress shops and the little small. We are a small town, and the theater. We have a bang up. You've been to that theater, the Lerner. Oh my gosh,
it's a theater.
It's absolutely, it's turn of the century beautiful. I mean, last century, and they have things there all the time. Well, they have nothing. They do occasionally rent out their ballroom for, like, when Sam got his award, from Junior Achievement Teacher of the Year. They were in the big ballroom, socially distanced. So, but that's sad, because I don't know how much longer they can hold up. But that, I guess it remains to be seen. We can hunker down and be strong and try to support them in the way that we can. And that's what I'm trying to do. Only place that I get, I do a lot of ordering from Amazon, and I wish I could do it. I'm not going to order from Walmart. That's not my favorite place in the world anyway. But any goods like that, I'll get on Amazon. What else am I going to do?
Right.
I haven't been in the grocery store since March. So there you go.
There you go. Well,
so I'm going to get on the other side, since you're on limited time, so you can visit with everybody else. But
I was gonna get your real quickly too. Actually, I'm trying to pull up some photos. I don't know if this is going to pull up or not. I was going to get your take on as well. It is December 7th. Now, granted, you were a little one when that happened, but
I was a year and a half old.
So, but you've been to Pearl Harbor, so you can sort of attest to your thoughts on today. I mean, I don't know if I don't think it's as big of a deal as it used to be, obviously, because with that generation, is so many of them are going. A chance. I'm going to go through my albums of photos from Pearl Harbor in a moment. But one of the things that I don't know why, if I'm on or here what, but one of the things that I was doing before is I listened to the entire 4-minute speech of Roosevelt in front of the there in Washington, the next day, that Monday we declared war, and I listened to the original, watched the original newsreel, the first newsreel that people saw, which would have been, a week, probably 2 weeks later. I think that newsreel was on December, around the 18th or 19th of December. By the time they got that newsreel distributed into the movie theaters, remember the newsreels were before the picture shows back in those days.
Well,
And
yeah, we
then
didn't have TV hardly.
right, and then I listened to the original, the first news report on the first live report they had from Honolulu. And then I listened to this really cool stretch that was from the radio broadcast that day. And one was a professional football game. I think it was the Giants and Bears were playing. They interrupted the broadcast to tell what was going on. And what people don't remember, Manila was also attacked too the very same day, same time. Manila was attacked. We had a huge base in the Philippines, which eventually fell to Japanese. And of course, MacArthur walked back on again later on. But that also happened. I'd forgotten about that part of it. And then it was a really cool little video, had all these pieces. One was the national broadcast, the New York Philharmonic. One was a broadcast from Minneapolis. It was all these radio stations and these break-ins they had back in the day. The news and was not like it is today. I mean, you'd watch it. Remember, we watched the Gulf War as it happened, for crying out loud. I mean, you watch 9/11 as it happened. So, it's really bizarre. It just where we've come.
Yeah, and that generation was a simpler generation, and they cared for their country so much. They were, and even those who didn't get to serve, like my dad, he was always upset, but he was a farmer, and he provided cotton for uniforms and so forth and so on. So and cottonseed oil, but he didn't. Not many. Gaines County is small. Was very less populated back then, and not many came back in a pine box. But he would just be. I didn't remember this, but I was told that he was so upset because if anybody came back that he had knowledge of that didn't survive. And of course, then I had two uncles that one who served in the occupation after, but then the other one served in the thick of the stuff. And so and so those were concerns because you have family over there, and I remember I was about that time. I remember I was about 6 when 4, and I was or maybe 4, maybe 5. I don't know how old I was, but I was the only little one in the whole family, so my uncles doted on me, and so they would send me things from over there. My uncle Ed sent me a purse made out of wooden slats and woven with cotton and handles, and it was hand painted, and I think it came from Austria. I'm not really sure. I've got to dig that out and send it to my cousin whose dad that was, because it would mean something to her, and I've told her about it, but I'll have to find it sometime when somebody can help me move stuff in the basement. But anyway, so I remember them being gone, but and but I barely. I didn't quite understand. I was too young to understand. So and news was slow coming. The radio was about the best thing, and of course in West Texas you had to have a tower that went to heaven get into things. So the stations were so far away. So yeah, it was a day from hell for those people who did not survive. So anyway, well, I'm going to move on the other side so you can chat with the people that are there, and I'll see you on the other side. Love you.
Okay, well, there you go. Love you too. My mom has talked. By the way, before you go, I think I've got a picture. This is a picture that I think you've seen before. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but I believe that is one of your uncles on the right. That's Uncle. Well, you can't see, but it's Uncle Ron, I believe, on the right. It's those 3 guys from Seminole that all came back and they got a picture taking their uniforms, I believe. And it's Uncle Ron's on the right in that picture. But anyway, all right, Mom, I'll let you go. Love you.
Love you too.
There we go. There goes Mom right there. All righty. Mom is on her way. There you go. That picture there, and that on the right is my Uncle Ron, my great uncle. That would be my grandmother's uh, youngest brother, and then my Uncle Ed was the older, and that's the picture I was talking about that appeared in the Seminole paper shortly after the war. I want to say after victory, well, VE Day, it would have been V overall day. It would have been victory, the final victory in over Japan. So this would have been when they came back, because he was in the occupational force. But I believe that's what this is. It's two of his mates there that were from Seminole. One was in the Marine Corps, one was in the Navy, and one was in the Army. And they all, when they came back to Seminole, they all got their pictures made post World War II. But that great generation today is dying and dying off. There's not many. We're losing them more and more. And I wrote a post in 2012, and I'm probably going to be a little more matter of fact today, because I ain't real happy with this country right now. I'm probably going to get canceled and who knows, get censored. But I have a right to my opinion, so I'm going to go ahead and they're barely out of high school. My mom said. In 2012, I wrote a little thing about how the greatest generation, and that was 2012, how we were losing them more and more. We'd kind of forgotten, and we've forgotten more and more. I mean, we're a country now where we're more worried about destroying the other side of the fence. But I just watched FDR's, and I think you should go back and watch that. I think you should watch that video of him speaking to the to the both houses, speaking to them about declaring war on Japan. And it was not a time of partisanship. That all stopped when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. There was some debate in this country about the isolationist point of view. But again, every time there's been a major conflict worldwide, the U.S., since the turn of the last century, the U.S. has been involved, and it had a very big play in it. And of course, World War I, the U.S. waited and waited and waited, and then finally may have been the difference maker in the end. But all those European countries in the Commonwealth had fought for a long time prior. World War II, we sat around as long as we could while Germany and Japan did what they did, and finally we came out of it and we did what we had to do. But we all were one. It didn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever. And unfortunately, we're in a situation now where we spent 4 years of one party tearing the other party down while their person's in office. And I guarantee you, the next 4 years, you're going to see the same thing, just going to flip the coin. And it doesn't matter how I vote or how you vote. It's not that. That's not what this is about. It's about how we are as a country now. And I think we forget. I just watched a video out of Kansas City. I think Fox 4 carried it up there, about a gentleman who's 99 years old, who lives in Kansas City. He spent basically his life in the Navy. Was at Pearl Harbor on the Arizona. Was one of the few one of the last remaining survivors left alive still. And there weren't that many, but he was left alive. And he's trying to make it to his 100th year next year so he can go back. He couldn't go back to Pearl Harbor this year, but he wants to go back next year on the 80th anniversary. And I thought his take on things was very interesting, a little piece he did. So I watched that. I watched FDR's speech. I listened to those newsreels and I listened to the news reports. And I came up with this thought today when I was at school. All this nonsense of us doing this, our TikTok video, technology is great because I'm on the line with you because of technology. But all this cancel culture and you're wrong and I'm right and hey, I'm a Hollywood, do things. The rules don't apply to me, but they apply to me. All this stuff, that would have got our asses kicked in 1942, 1941, 42. We would have got our butts kicked. There's no way around it. We would have got our butts kicked. The attitude then was different than it is today. Now we can't even fight a virus on the same page. We made it political. You got politicians that don't want to take a virus because somebody else got. And here I am wanting to call baseball games, and I got to spend 14 days in quarantine going to Australia, paying an exorbitant amount to go over there and call games. People have lost their livelihoods, but no one wants to agree. And I'm just saying, back in those days, that great generation knew the sacrifice. They knew the sacrifice. And a lot of them lost their lives that day. And having been to Arizona Memorial twice, Pearl Harbor twice, once as a young man and once a little older, I think it's a place that a lot of Americans need to visit. They probably, and I think most of our younger generation think of Pearl Harbor as a movie. It's a lot like anything else in history. Once you get too old, it's a movie. And that's kind of how I was as a kid growing up. World War II was just a movie. It was a bunch of movies my dad watched, a bunch of documentaries my dad watched. It was not something I related to. As I got older and appreciated what those people went through, and having been to some of those places, especially in Hawaii, you get to you appreciate that. So my thought today was very much the fact that if we would have had this attitude in 1941, 42, we'd have got our asses handed to us. Can you imagine in 1941, 42? Think about this. Do you know that ball players like Ted Williams, in the middle of their career, a Hall of Fame career, Ted Williams joins the service and fights overseas. Tom Landry, the legendary coach of the Cowboys, flew bombing missions over Europe. He didn't sit at a desk. He flew bombing missions over Europe. Yes, that Tom Landry. I mean, you have a generation of people that stopped what they were doing. You had Hollywood stars. Now, granted, some of them weren't in harm's way, but there were some in harm's way. There were people that lost their lives. Granted, Clark Gable was basically a spokesperson, but he was there in uniform. Can you imagine today a Hollywood type deciding they were going to support everybody and all one for all? No. We're too worried about other nonsense. We're too worried about the next bit we're going to pull, the next TikTok video, the next bit we're going to do. And that's really, we've taken such great things in our lives, technology, medicine, all these advances in transportation and bringing us all closer together as a community where I can talk to I have a conference call in a half hour to Australia and be able to video back and forth with those guys. All these great things we have, and yet we don't have the right mindset. And that's a shame. We have all these things at our disposal. We're going to have a vaccine in record time, but yet we have this attitude, just this crap attitude. And they didn't have that back in those days. And it's frustrating because, it rotted away over time. It's rotting away. Now we're to a point now where, can you imagine if we take all the things we have today and we go back and go back to 1941? Do you think anybody? I mean, I'm granted, nothing changes. We're all still involved with the Georgia runoff and who's the president, who's not. We're all canceling each other, and this person's making this statement, and this person thinks this person is terrible, and because you're not wearing a mask, you're terrible, and we're all this stuff going on. Do you think we could have the gumption to go to fight a war against an Axis foe that was doing the things they were doing? Commit the atrocities they were committing. I mean, have you read that? Have you seen the things, not just the Germans, the Japanese did back then? Could we have done that as a country today with this attitude we have today? Could we have done that back then? And my answer is no. We can't even agree on a vaccine for a virus that's costing lives and costing business livelihoods. The dog agrees with me. You're the mailman's here, one of the two. And again, I'm not trying to be, a jackass here, but again, can you imagine? Give me the athlete. Ted Williams is one of the best hitters of all time. I mean, he is probably, arguably, a lot of folks think he is the best pure hitter of all time. In the middle of his career, he's in the service. He leaves to go fight. And left a lot of young major leaguers. You had some guys, Bob Feller, for example, guys like that went in the service. You had some real young players that were filling the gaps. I mean, Mo Berg, great story of Mo Berg. The catcher was a spy. This really eccentric gentleman who was a spy for the early, what's become the CIA. He was an early CIA agent, ball player, risked life and limb behind enemy lines as a spy because he spoke multiple languages. And I believe he was Jewish too. I mean, throw all those things in the mix, and you're occupied Europe, and you're a spy. I mean, So again, my point is, and having been to Pearl Harbor twice, and having seen what I've seen, and think that I'm sort of knowledgeable, I didn't even serve our country, and that's my biggest regret, that I didn't serve in the military. I'm a big regret, but I guarantee you one thing. If I'd have been 18, 19 years old and we would have been, in a situation like that, I would have. Fortunately for me, we were in a non-conflict time when I graduated from college. Now, granted, we just came off a Gulf War, but anyway, the point is, the more I thought about today, the more I was just like, it's sad that today, a day like today, December 7th, is kind of like, meh. And my fear is 9/11 becomes that. It's starting to become that already, kind of a meh. I remember where I was, but you're going to have a point in my lifetime, there's going to be a point where people are going to start not even thinking about that anymore. Meh. Because we're too busy on our devices doing this. We're too busy making cool videos and canceling folks out and making ridiculous bits and statements and worried about nonsense. I mean, the news that we worry about, and we're taking our leads from Hollywood types and athletes who never do that. Back then, they did that. So that's my rant today. So I probably upset some folks, and I'm probably, on Facebook jail. But I mean, it's the fact. Do you believe that we'd actually be able to pull off what we pulled off back then with the attitudes and all the things we have going on today? And I no. The media can't even agree on a vaccine. You got one group pointing out this thing. We can't even agree to say, and I told my wife this a couple of months ago, it's sad that we haven't used this as a rallying cry as a country. Now, some places have. I think Australia's done a phenomenal job. I don't necessarily think they, maybe they shouldn't have locked down like they have, but they've done a phenomenal job, and everybody's sucked it up over there. That's a different country, I know, but they have freedom as well, and they're just now opening up state borders over there. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to get political on who's the right and the wrong, but the point is we can't agree on anything, and that should be the point. We should be able to be one on things like vaccines and bombings of naval bases. We should all be on the same page. There's no way in the world we would have survived in 1941 with this current attitude. There's no way. The media can't even agree. I mean, the media. You had a media member today. I believe it was a New York Times reporter talking about how Biden. And again, this is what he said. I'm paraphrasing. Biden. It's nice to have Biden around, somebody that is likable. It's not the media's job to tell me who's likable. Tell me what the guy said. And again, that's what we've become. We've become a people of canceling people out, telling people what to do and what not to do, when we should be doing all things together. And again, probably going to step on some toes and upset some folks, but I've been there twice. And let me show you, again, let me bring this down here. Sorry about my tangent there. I want to show you guys, I did a really cool tour, 2018, almost 2 years, a little over 2 years ago. My cousin had a wedding in Maui, and I went over, and I think yeah, you can see it. Went to Maui. Mom and my aunt went with me, and we flew over. I took a day on my own, and I flew Hawaiian Air from Maui to Honolulu, and just did a day in Honolulu. I've already been to Honolulu, but I mean, Honolulu is a city on a beach. It's a beautiful city on a beach, But I wanted to go to Pearl Harbor one more time because I've not been there since they redid it. They put the new visitor center in, a lot more artifacts and more displays. Plus, they'd opened up Hickman Field, which is the airfield attached to it you've seen from the movies. And I also want to do a tour of this red light tour of Honolulu. I wanted a tour of what it was like in Honolulu in 1941. And I went on a really cool tour, and I'm going to show you guys here, if I can pull this up here. This is from that tour. This is where you start the tour. It's the Hawaiian Theater. And I've got a really cool picture I want to someday show, maybe sell it to somebody if I can find the couple, but there's a couple actually standing below the sign in their wedding gear that day doing their wedding pictures. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to go this way. Hold on, just say I'm screen sharing, so give me a moment here. Roddy. Okay, this right here, this is a picture of two U.S. Arizona sailors in the Union Bar. The Union Bar, this is on the wall there. The Union Bar is, you may have seen this bar. It's been depicted in a couple of the Pearl Harbor movies. The Union Bar was the USS Arizona's bar. Every ship that was in port in Pearl Harbor, and it's still this way today. And it's very common in any kind of military base. You go down to Fort Hood, for example, in Texas, you're going to have certain places where certain divisions and groups or whatever are going to hang out. Same thing with the Navy. There at Pearl Harbor, you had an Arizona bar. It was called the Union Bar. It's still there in existence. Had a beer there. And these are two sailors that were with a couple of hula girls, so to speak, there in Honolulu. But this whole bar is full of photos like this. This is outside that area. You can see the left corner there, Union Bar. This is the street. This is basically unchanged from 1941. This is inside the bar. You can see they've got all kinds of artifacts, kind of little bamboo on top of the let me move that, on top of the roof there. Let's see here. This is a famous guy that was Lauren Bruner, who passed, I believe, the year prior to me going there. He was a famous spokesperson, crew member for the Arizona, and he had his own table reserved there for members of the Arizona, and that's his table right there. You can see that's it's been there since forever. Matter of fact, the facilities, I don't have a picture of it, but the facilities there are still the same troughs they had in 1941. This is a tattoo shop that's Sailor Jerry's. That was a famous tattoo shop. I'm going to fast forward through all this stuff. This is the Sailor Jerry tattoo shop, which is a famous vintage tattoo. This is down. Let me kind of move along here. Oh, there's me. Oh, sorry. All right, here we go. That's what I want to get to. This is the Arizona Memorial. And they were doing some work on it at the time, so you couldn't get off. They were actually putting some new, they had dredged up some of the area as well, and they were re-supporting the memorial. I've actually been on the memorial itself, but they were actually had the memorial closed, so you couldn't actually get on it, but you could go right by it. So they take you right by it, and there you go. There's a shot of it, and there's I can't remember what ship that is. One of the old battleships that's there. There you go. There's a shot of the memorial again. And there's two U.S. sailors that their job is they drive tourists and out to this memorial and back and forth. Then at that time they were doing some refurbishing. You couldn't get off. Now I believe you can. I can't remember what battleship this is. But what I want to show you guys, there's the two sailors right there. These are U.S. servicemen who this is what they do. And it's a very somber experience going to the memorial there. And the reason it is because this is toward Hickman Field. This would have been looking back toward what would have been Battleship Row back at the time. Now this is a more modern ship. It's a museum. This is I think this is not the it's the, oh gosh, it's one of the carriers. It's one of the carriers there that is open to the public. But what I'm going to show you guys is this museum here. I'm going to get to there. These are sorry. So OB-29 there. What I want to show you is the actual airfield. Kind of blowing through this here. Oh, this actually is interesting. On this flight log here is George Bush's name, George Bush Sr. Of course, he was a pilot, also lifted out of the ocean as well when his dive bomber was hit by air fire. This is the tower. It wasn't painted that color back in 1941, but it is now since been painted that in the Pacific Aviation Museum at Fort Island there. And you can barely make it out in the forefront. There's some bullet holes in the concrete. And there you go. This is the hangar there. You've seen this countless times on newsreels. See those bullet holes in the bottom of it? Those are bullet holes in the bottom of the glass. Those are from the attack. They had not changed those at all. It's still, you can see the rust and all that. That's still the same hangar. And they got the bullet holes. I don't know if I got a good shot. You can see it right there. There's like 4 of them. You can barely, I can see them here. I need to focus it out for you, but if you can see, there's like a strip. You can see some places where there's little bullet holes. Those are bullet holes in the concrete. You can't really tell from this angle, but they're there. Those are bullet holes in the concrete there in Honolulu. And again, this is just some more in the museum there. And so I think that's all I got from that. I think these are just, there's a really cool air museum. Okay, look behind me. You can, if you look behind my left ear, there's a crack going kind of north-south and one going east-west. You see those? If you look to the left, you barely make them out. Those are bullet holes in the concrete. And there's me. There is the airplane I flew back to Maui. But let me bring this back down here. There we go. So but anyway, my point is having been there, I think my perspective, having seen the bullet holes, what I failed to mention on the Arizona Memorial, there's still sailors entombed down there, and there's still little drips of oil, little bubbles of oil that still are there. It's not as noticeable as it was in 1985 when I was there, but there's still a little bit of a oily water where that hull is on that right there below the surface. And it's, again, having been there personally, this day to day always means a lot to me. And I remember going there in 85 with my grandparents and my granddad and being there with my grandfather, who didn't serve, but was a farmer, but how much that touched him. And seeing back then in the 80s, all those veterans, there were a lot more veterans around back in the 80s that were there at Pearl Harbor, and they were, their age. And to see them there with the place was, and you got to go on the memorial back in those days, and to see that, but to know that there's not many of those folks left. And it just got me thinking today. So I kind of a little more of a, less of a fun time, more of a remembering time. Sometimes you have a beverage of choice and you kind of tell it like it is. Well, I did that today. I kind of told it like it was. So I hope you guys give me some leeway today. A couple things in the weekend for us. We go to the weekend conversation for us. Had a good one. Wife and I had we bundled up, and both Friday and Saturday was not nearly as bad Saturday as I thought it would be, but we're starting to wear multiple layers and sitting under the heaters, and we actually were in a patio with all the heaters. We were fine. So that was all good. And I mentioned the mall. I was shocked in a good way. I guess I should be mortified that people were out in the mall, but I'm glad people were spending money, because I don't know how many of these places are going to be open 6 months from now, much less 6 weeks. I don't know. I was glad to see folks out even doing a little bit of spending just to try to help local business. And that's what it's that way countless places across the country. So no matter where you're watching, and some encouragement. And I did see today too that apparently there's vaccines getting closer, and that's good news too. But again, I tried to be right down the middle here, because I think there's a bigger picture. There's certain things we do and don't do. My wife and I prefer to go. We're not hunkered down in shut-ins. But if somebody wants to be a shut-in, that's fine with me. I'm not against that. I'm not gonna chastise you. If a public school teacher wants to not teach, I get it. If a private school teacher wants to teach, I get it. We're probably going to travel. We're going to do that. But if you don't, we get it too. We're going to wear a mask. We're not walking around and doing, like I said, crowd surfing at a concert. Everybody's got their way of dealing with it. The thing is we all got to be trying to do the right thing. And, what I mean is, if I choose to get on a plane and go somewhere, well, I don't need to be canceled out because of it. And if you decide to stay home and not go anywhere, you don't need to be canceled out either. You're not scared. You just don't have any empathy. And it's just a weird time. And it hit me today watching those newsreels and thinking about Pearl Harbor Day, how things are different. So anyway, coming up on Wednesday, I'll be teaching. I got called in tomorrow. I was only supposed to teach Monday, Wednesday, but I got called in tomorrow. And I think Wednesday is the last day for me until next week. I've got, I believe, 2 days next week with a trip to Kansas City possibly on the horizon. So kind of busy times. I also got Australia stuff to work on too. So, but need those substitute days. Without the substitute teaching gig, and then believe me, they're not messing around. When a teacher feels bad and they're not sure, old Dan's on standby to come in and do what he's got to do. So I'm doing that, but very blessed to have that. Anyway, anybody else got anything? Glad you guys stopped by today on my rant special, I suppose it was. But again, Wednesday we'll catch up. Hopefully, we did make a beer run on Friday. I meant to tell you this part, and we did go to the place that does the Christmas cookie beer, and went to that brewery over in Grapevine. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit on Wednesday. So moving to our Friday beer test as well. So we got all that coming up. And as well, of course, tomorrow a Cowboy game on a Tuesday. So much to talk about in the NFL. How about the Giants? My final thing is, do you really need to put all your money in a running back? You can still be a running team. You can still run the ball and commit to running the ball with good linemen and a running back. You don't got to dump everything into a running back. You don't have to do that. Giants proved it yesterday. They got they're down to their third or fourth one. They're going to commit to running the ball. I don't know. The whole Cowboy thing is a whole different animal. Watching the Chiefs, even when they struggle, it's a different culture. It's frustrating. I didn't even talk about the terrible Tech outing on Saturday where they squeaked out one against Kansas. And yet down in Austin, they're going to probably change coaches. At least they're holding their coach accountable. Tech's just trying to go ahead and beat Kansas. Oh, boy. I wish the Red Raiders claimed the same kind of attitude. The Longhorn attitude's over the top, but the Red Raider attitude is a little bit below that. Anyway, okay, Wednesday, we'll see you guys 5 o'clock. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday, everybody. Much love to y'all, and much love to those at Greatest Generation, like my uncle and others, and we appreciate their service and on this Pearl Harbor Day, the 79th year since the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and a lot has changed, but hopefully our hearts as one will continue to grow, continue to be better. Be better tomorrow and show more love. Because if we showed more love, we can kick ass at anything. We can overcome any enemy if we show some love, I guarantee you. I know it sounds crazy, but loving each other and loving each other as one, well, we can overcome anything, any adversity. We can. And we'll do that. All righty. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, everybody, on Virtual Happy Hour. Love y'all. See y'all then.